Hey guys, welcome back. Today we're going to be housing some Rubber Ducky Isopods, or the Cubaris species. So first, my tool of choice is going to be a cheap soldering iron off of Amazon with a very fine pointed tip. If you can see that on there, let me show the other camera. This seems to work great, and if you need to cut or even do some larger holes, you'll be able to. I use the same thing for making moist hides for snakes, leopard geckos, anybody like that. In fact, I use these same containers as well. But what I do is for the invertebrates, especially isopods, centipedes, what else do I got? And even my feeders, I do the same thing. I usually do a row down each side, and then depending on how they're kept, sometimes I'll do some on the end. And the lid, which helps a little bit of excess moisture escape, which I feel is important, so that helps inhibit mold growth by allowing it to evaporate, which also allows for a healthy environment. So this is all there is to it. I do recommend doing this in a well-ventilated area, because you are essentially melting and burning plastic. I sometimes can be pretty OCD about my holes and how they're spaced out, or the size of them, or even if they're in a row. But I've kind of gotten to the point where I've made so many of these that it only bothers me and not what's being kept in there. So typically with isopods, I will do one row, and then I'll also go back to the lid and I'll do probably about a third of the lid with holes. These are from Walmart. They're mainstay in the food prep department. These are 2.4 liter or 10 cup, and they come in packs of 2. I think like $3 or $4. Nice secure lid and thick, sturdy. So anyways, let's get back to putting these holes in the lid. So I usually just follow these little marks on the lid. I'll go across and then just keep punching holes. Something to keep in mind, that the more holes you punch, you do get better ventilation, but the substrate in the enclosure will likely start drying out a little bit quicker. So keep an eye on that. And as you make more of these enclosures, you'll start to kind of get a hang of how many holes you need. I typically, it's winter here now, so most of my isopod enclosures, about once a week, I'll spray the moist side, which is where a lot of the sphagnum moss is. But that's all there is to it. Then just clean out the enclosure a little bit. I usually wipe it out with some alcohol and then rinse it with some clean water. Just get all the chemicals, the mold release, all that out of there before putting in the isopods. So here's the finished product. Lid, holes. To clean it out, I use some isopropyl alcohol and some paper towel. Spray it in there, give it a good rub down. I think everybody's out in the room tonight watching me, wondering what's going on. It's with the bright lights. Don't forget the lid. All right, so that's how we make an enclosure for them. First things first, substrate. Now, the Cubaris species do like a little bit deeper substrate. I'm going to probably fill this up probably a third of the way, if not a little bit more. Because it will pack down a little bit, especially as they burrow and you get it wet. So we'll probably start at about half, I suppose. And this already has leaves and sphagnum in it. Next thing we're going to do, and because I'm going to use the sphagnum moss that's in with the isopods right now, I'm going to wet the soil a bit. You don't want to soak it, but you want it thoroughly damp. Enough to where if you pick it up in your fist and squeeze it, water's not going to run out, but it'll still clump together. Alright, now I'm going to kind of give them a nice piece of cork bark. So we'll tuck that in there. I like to usually put the cork bark kind of in the middle, between both what will end up being the dry side and the moist side. That way a little bit of the moisture still seeps over underneath the log, but they still have the option of hiding there, you know, so they can move around based on what they want as conditions. The other thing I'm going to add, which I probably should have done before I put this in there, is springtails. Just help any mold or anything like that that might grow. This is an established little colony that I've had and been keeping for a while, so I'll just take a scoop of dirt out and we'll plunk it down in here, and that'll be just kind of like the little starter for it. Got springtails in there. Now we're gonna put the new little rubber duckies. Finally found a really good deal on these. 13 for 125 bucks, which is really good deal for these guys. Let's see if we can see any of them in here before I move them. So we'll take out their little piece of carrot and we'll stick that in here. I guess we'll do some crushed leaves first. Keep forgetting the little things. Crushed leaves, the limestone. They do live in limestone caves typically, so they do need some sort of limestone or cuttlebone, something that's high in calcium. These leaves I did collect out from outside and then baked them in the oven. So they will eat those, they'll break down. Here's the limestone that I've got. Bought it off Amazon. Came in a 5-pound box. I don't remember how much it was, but we'll put a piece of this. We'll leave the big one out. Put one piece on the wet side and one on the dry. It's all about options. Since I did just start with a fresh, all moist dirt, I'm not going to add any dried food like the fish pellets or anything like that, the high protein stuff, because I don't want it to mold too quickly, especially with a new enclosure. We're going to stick some of this in here and start looking for our little isopods. Here's a little rubber ducky right there. Oh. We're going to wet the sphagnum moss down just a little bit more. Just give these guys a good start. And that'll do it. Then as far as the holes on the lid, I always put that over top of the dry side. That way, you know, the air still stays a little bit moist as it's trying to escape. That's my reasoning behind it. Seems to work. My colonies that I've had for quite a while have been doing quite well. Anyways, that's how I set up my enclosure for my Cubaris or my Rubber Ducky Isopods. we'll check back on them here in a couple weeks and see how they're doing. Do some updates on all the other isopods as well at some point. But if anybody has any questions, you can drop a comment down below. And if you like videos like this or want to see more or have suggestions, be sure to like and subscribe. So thanks again, and we'll all see you later.